Blitz Zone with your hosts, Eric Rosen and Jamie Hickson, as they discuss the hot topics concerning your favorite players and team, the winners, the losers, the big plays, and the big hits from around the league. Right here, only on the Blitz Zone.
It's Friday, September 30th, 2016. It's that time of the hour for your favorite NFL and college football program. Welcome to Week 4 of the Blitz Zone. Hi, everybody. My name is Eric Rosen, and we're coming to you live from the studios of CTV in Staten Island, New York. And back from his one-week hiatus is my good friend, my main man, my partner throughout this whole journey to Super Bowl 51, Mr. Jamie, the sportsman Hickson.
Can you believe we're actually at the end of September and we're approaching October already?
I know. The first quarter is pretty much almost complete. You know, that's crazy to think that we're heading into another pivotal month of the season.
Yeah.
And, you know, this past week, 2 rookie quarterbacks still haven't yet to throw a pick in Carson Wentz and Dak Prescott. Isn't that insane?
And eventually one of these kids is going to make a mistake because no quarterback ever remains perfect for an entire season unless it's in the win column. See Tom Brady.
Well, Carson Wentz won't have to worry about that this week because his Eagles are on the bye as opposed to Dak Prescott. His team's heading to San Fran to play the 49ers at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, that's one of the big games of the NFL weekend. And there's a really intriguing matchup in the Atlantic Coast Conference that could make for the single best game of the college weekend, but that's a story for later.
Oh, without a doubt. Like, there's a lot of intrigue, but also let's start with some of the craziest news stories. Like, breaking news just 2 hours before we went on the air, we found out that the Buffalo Bills are placing wide receiver Sammy Watkins on the injured reserve list due to the foot injury he's had to deal with throughout the preseason and in the regular season.
Yeah, this is a guy who has been the main target for whoever the Bills quarterback is. Lately, it's been Tyrod Taylor. But with him out of there, this is only going to make matters worse for the Bills, as if they didn't have enough problems already. They're going to try and bring him back for the last 2 weeks of the regular season, but even that's a long shot at best because Watkins is a guy who relies on quickness and explosiveness, so there's no guarantee that he's going to be making his return anytime soon.
Without a doubt, and this is such a blow to that offense. But the good thing this past weekend's Arizona, that defense really came with some great blitz package plays against Carson Palmer, forcing him to mistakes. And on top of that, LaShawn McCoy was highlighted and utilized.
Yeah. LaShawn McCoy was acquired from the Eagles for a reason, and that's to try and bring another dimension to that offense when it doesn't come down to the passing game. And he's definitely the type of guy that the Bills should pound the ball to at least 50% of the time because he's somebody who could definitely find those seams on the line and really make a break for the end zone. And
he's not the only one who's been injured for the Bills. You know, if you look at the 2 rookies they had, Lawson, already, before the regular season began, and then you had, of course, Marcel Darius, and he has one more game left suspended. And he's not the only one that still has a game left on suspension that's coming into this week. Tom Brady still has just this week left, and then like a caged line, he'll be unleashed against the Cleveland Browns week 5.
Well, just to give you an idea exactly how great the Patriots are, they've been able to start the season 3-0 with 2 different quarterbacks. Jimmy Garoppolo, who was kind of sort of ballyhooed because of the backstory that he had, and the other kid who unfortunately wound up getting hurt as well. So
Jacoby Brissett. Yeah.
Jacoby Brissett, who pretty much had a real interesting odyssey in college. He started off at Florida, then transferred over to North Carolina State, where he had 2 very, very good seasons, and he wound up getting drafted in the late rounds this past April, and he was doing really well for himself. He was showing a lot of zip on his passes.
And can run. He's a dual-threat guy.
He's a terrific athlete. Unfortunately, he wound he wound up getting put on the injury report as well. From what I heard, he's either questionable or probable at best for the Patriots this weekend.
And it's not just him. Actually, him and Garoppolo are both questionable this week. And that's the crazy thing. So if both quarterbacks are not able to go, you know who their emergency quarterback is?
Julian Edelman,
who was a former quarterback in college. Isn't that crazy?
That I think it would be kind of fun to see Julian Edelman take the snaps from center again. I mean, he had a pretty good couple of years at K-State, but it's been a long time since he's actually suited up for a game taking snaps from under center. So let's see if the Patriots can have at least both of their youngsters ready for this weekend. And the best part about this is they're undefeated. This is the last game of Brady's suspension, which, by the way, he wound up spending sunbathing with his wife just recently.
Oh, come on. If you had Gisele Bundchen as your wife, you would go sunbathing with her.
Mm-hmm. But after this, obviously, Brady wants to be back on the field more than anything else. So once this suspension is over, you better watch out because he is going to come to work.
Like I said, he's a caged lion, basically, and once he gets unleashed from his cage, the Cleveland Browns are going to be his first victims. And I feel bad. Speaking of Cleveland, they're one of 4 0-3 teams heading into this week.
And they quite frankly, self-destructed in their last game, which they should have won.
Their last 2 games, they self-destructed. Mm-hmm. They had a 20-point lead against Baltimore.
Yep.
They blew that.
Should be 2-1 right now. They blew the Baltimore game. They blew the Miami game. This team should be 2-1 right now.
And how about San Diego? They should be 2-1 as well.
Yep.
And they blew a perfect opportunity in Indianapolis and gave up a big touchdown to T.Y. Hilton.
And I think in our neck of the woods, you could argue that the Jets should be 2-1 if it had not been for the disaster that was the Cincinnati game.
Oh.
And the Giants should be 3-0 if they had not self-destructed in the Washington game last weekend.
Oh, where's my barf bag where I need it? Because believe me, both those games made me want to puke chunks after watching both pitiful performances.
And it's not going to get any easier because both teams have really good contenders coming up this weekend. The Jets have the Seahawks. The Giants have the Vikings on Monday night. Of course, the Vikings are not going to have Adrian Peterson because he might be out for the rest of the season. But they're facing a quarterback, Sam Bradford, who, although he is off to a reasonable start, he has had a very, very checkered past on the playing field.
No offense to Sam. He's done well. He's made some good throws in the last 2 weeks, but everything, the success that Minnesota has to, the people, the unit that is owed all the success in Minnesota is the defense. You look at the first 3 games and all that. They gave up 15 points week 1 in Tennessee. They gave up 14 points week 2 Sunday night against Green Bay, and they gave up only 10 points this past week against Carolina to top with the 8 sacks and 12 quarterback hits. Mm-hmm. But we'll get into that in a bit. Let's start with some of the biggest news. Besides Sammy Watkins' injury,
J.J. Watt also is going to be out quite a long time because he underwent, he just got back from was it his first back surgery or his second back surgery?
It was his first. He had a herniated disc injury in July in training camp. He had to get surgery afterwards. He missed the entire preseason. He was able to come back just in time for the Chicago Week 1 game against Chicago. Unfortunately, now he re-aggravated the injury last Thursday night when the Texans lost 27-0 in New England. So to add insult to injury, J.J. Watt is done for the year, and he had to get surgery on Thursday. So this leaves a bit of a hole in that defensive front seven because what he does is he usually acquires double teams, which opens up defensive plays for Jadeveon Clowney and Whitney Merciless. Now it's just going to be Clowney and Merciless really taking over for that defense. Even Brian Cushing is questionable this week for the Texans defense. And talk about checkered past with injuries. He's had an enormous amount of injuries, Brian Cushing.
Yeah. I'm a little worried about Watt, though. This is his second back surgery, his second major back surgery. Could it be that maybe he or the Texans might have rushed him back too soon? Because this is a good 6 to 8 months in recovery that usually people who undergo a back surgery have to go through. And he came back basically in the blink of an eye. Roughly, 2 or 3 months that he came back from his injury?
It's 2 months, a month maybe, and a week. They really should have not rushed this. They should have waited till October, November at best to ease him back into the team. They really should have waited because he is a vital piece of that defense. He's a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. This guy averages over 15 sacks a season. You can't afford to lose this guy who's really, literally the centerpiece to me, the fulcrum of this entire team. No offense to Osweiler and that young offense, but really J.J. Watt is the heartbeat of the Texans. Mm-hmm. So you're going to be without your heartbeat for the rest of the season. Good luck to them. And earlier this week, Josh Gordon, of course, a promising wide receiver who came out of Baylor in the supplemental draft, who had that breakout 2013 season where he led the league with over 1,600 receiving yards. Unfortunately, now his career could be in jeopardy. He just entered rehab. He said because, and I quote, I just want to gain full control of my life.
Let's see if he's contrite about this, first of all, because usually when it comes to addicts, whether it's drugs or alcohol, addicts usually say the right things, but they don't necessarily do the right things. So let's see if this guy's true to his word, first of all. And second of all, the Browns made it loud and clear, or specifically Hugh Jackson made it loud and clear, they're done with this kid.
Oh, yeah. I think they're going to be moving on from him. Good luck to him. I hope he really goes through with this, unlike his friend at the time with the Browns, Johnny Manziel,
mm-hmm.
who went to rehab for just 8 weeks and then thought, oh, I'm recovered. That's it. You need more than just 8 weeks. I think you need even more time to get through rehab. And I hope that Josh Gordon doesn't really half-ass it and takes this seriously and goes to rehab, gets his life in order, and realizes that drugs and substances are not the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
I really hope the best for this young man because he has a lot of potential. He really does have star quality. Somebody will pick him up and give him a chance down the line.
Yeah. He's got that kind of ability, though. I would say somebody would maybe give him a chance as a kick returner because that's really where he made his mark when he first came into the league as a kick returner.
But the guy can catch, too.
Mm-hmm.
He can be a good vertical deep threat receiver as well. And now earlier this week, when the Colts finally defeated the Chargers 26-22 on that game-winning touchdown by T.Y. Hilton, and I'll get into further detail in a bit on that, one of the Colts radio announcers got very excited. And by excited, I mean he bleeped a word. The game is finally F*** or over. I think you know where I'm going with this, fellow.
Yeah.
He dropped an F-bomb on the air, and it was really he felt sorry for it, but at the same time, he was excited. But as a radio person, man, you got to be able to control that stuff. Especially because we're on the air. We can't say that stuff. We're live.
Mm-hmm.
We say that stuff. You can never take it back.
Yeah.
And
for the record, the man in question is Bob Lamey. He's been the voice of the Colts for a long, long time, and a very good broadcaster, too. But there comes a moment when even some of the most veteran broadcasters can have a slip-up every once in a while.
But, we know he's apologetic, and he didn't mean it, so, we'll give the guy a break. And the fact is his team got their first victory by 4 points over the chart. Now, Anthony Davis, you ever heard of a second time retiring again?
Yeah, well, this guy just did. Anthony Davis retired for the first time
in
over the last year, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Last year.
Then he decided to give it one last try. Then he came back for training camp and the preseason, and then he decided he wants to call it a career again. I hope he doesn't turn into Sugar Ray Leonard because that's going to be abysmal. With these multiple retirements and comeback opportunities.
I hate when athletes do that stuff. I'm sorry. I don't have respect when people make up your mind the first time or don't do it at all. Blank or get off the pot. Anyway, the Jets this week acquired a new piece to their tight end depth. Austin Severian Jenkins, formerly of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And this is a guy, talk about a checkered past.
Yeah.
He was arrested last Friday morning on suspicion of a misdemeanor DUI and a driver's license violation. That's why the Bucks got rid of him. And the fact that, and because of that, Dirk Cutter was just not going to have it on his team.
Well, kudos to Dirk Cutter because he realized the signs right there. With this guy, there's no such thing as second chances. It's one strike and you're out. And quite frankly, I applaud this guy for doing that.
I know. And now the Jets pick him up through the waiver wires. Let's hope he can be a vital piece. Considering that Decker is out this week, he may be the X factor the Jets are looking towards. And finally, maybe the tight end that we've always needed, a 6'5" guy that can really do well in Chan Gailey's system. Let's hope he doesn't screw the second opportunity. Joique Bell, former running back for the Lions, well, he's going to another NFC North team, the Chicago Bears.
Interesting.
And you look at the injuries. Jeremy Langford, he's out for the next 4 to 6 weeks. Kadeem Carey, the other player, is out this week. They're starting a rookie fifth-rounder out of Indiana, Jordan Howard, in their backfield. They signed Bell for depth purposes. More injuries. La'el Collins, he's out 6 to 10 weeks on that offense line for the Bears. Kyle Fuller, he's also heading to the IR, cornerback from that famous family. I mentioned Langford. Manti Te'o tore his Achilles tendon. He's done for the year. Trent Cole, the pass rusher, a veteran pass rusher for the Colts, he's on the IR too as well with a back injury. D'Angelo Hall, unfortunately, he's done for the year. He tore his ACL week 3 against the Giants.
And one other thing to report is one of the guys on the Cowboys offensive line, Randy Gregory. Well, unfortunately, his suspension was upheld. He's going to be gone 10 games. He tried getting it appealed and hopefully cut down, so he appealed it. But he's going to be gone 10 games, so that's a huge piece of that O-line that the Cowboys are going to be missing for 10 games this season.
He's actually in rehab too, like Josh Gordon. He went into rehab and he let go of the appeal actually, because he originally appealed like Lane Johnson. And this is a big week for Lane Johnson because he is appealing the 10-game suspension. You know, and he's vital to Carson Wentz and that offensive line for the Eagles. So if he doesn't get to play for 10 games, he could be out till week 15. That's a huge loss. Now let's recap the past week. That is week 3 of the NFL season, starting in Carolina when the Minnesota Vikings came to town.
Yeah, that had to be a bit of a surprise for me, considering that not only are the Vikings working with a C-plus quarterback in Sam Bradford, but All-Day Adrian is out for the majority of the season because he blew out his knee. So now it looks like it's going to be Bradford and maybe his
Jerick
understudy.
McKinnon.
McKinnon, that's his understudy, that's going to be getting the majority of the work this season. And the final score didn't really say much, but this was all Vikings defense in this game. Just a fantastic job of containing Cam Newton in that pocket.
And also containing Kelvin Benjamin. He only had 1 target. That's it in the entire game. That's kudos to Captain Munnerlyn in the secondary doing a great job covering him. And that Vikings defense, 8 sacks and 12 hits. That's great on the defense of the Vikings, an indictment on Carolina's offensive line. You know, that's the second most sacks in one game that Cam Newton has sustained in his career. I shudder to think what the most sacks are.
Well, that's a kudos to great defense that the Vikings game planned against him. I mean, they saw all of the weaknesses that were on that line, and they were able to capitalize on them.
Especially on the left line. Michael Orr did a bad job in pass protection. And Everson Griffin led the way with 3 sacks. Yeah, they won 22-10. How about the Detroit Lions visiting the Packers in Green Bay's home opener, and the Packers did not disappoint. They came out in the first half, 4 touchdowns. Aaron Rodgers was 12 of 18, 174 yards. Half of those touchdowns were thrown to his best friend, Jordy Nelson.
Yeah. The numbers didn't show it, but Rodgers did. It was efficient enough to lead his team to the victory.
And this is despite the fact that Detroit led the game in passing, total offensive yards, and time possession with 35 minutes. And still, they ended up losing by 1 touchdown, 34-20. The second half really was all Detroit, not Green Bay. In fact, Mohamed Sanu had a record over 200 yards in that performance.
If that name sounds familiar, it probably should. Mohamed Sanu is a former Rutgers star who spent most of his young career in Cincinnati and now is trying to find himself in the NFC North.
Which is really saying a lot for this guy. Great game. How about, speaking of his former team, the Bengals actually, we'll get into their game from last night, but last week they were at home in the jungle playing the Broncos, and the Broncos and Simeon conquered the jungle. 4 touchdowns for the guy, including after A.J. Green misses a pivotal third down catch. What happens next is Simeon goes 11 of 12, leading the Broncos to 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns, 55 yards to Demaryius Thomas, 41 yards to Emmanuel Sanders. They end up winning the game 29-17.
Could it be that Trevor Simeon is the guy to watch for down the road? I mean, they invested quite a bit in Paxton Lynch, who they drafted number 1, but so far, it's Simeon who's taken the games by the throat in the first quarter of the season.
Who would have thought a late-round guy would be a starting quarterback and still be 3-0? Kudos to him. How about the Dolphins and the Browns? In Miami's home opener, the debut of Hard Rock Stadium, which had a $500 million facelift in the offseason.
Yeah.
Especially with the roof that they brought in, which is the smartest thing. They should have done that for years, considering South Florida can be drowned in rain.
Yeah. And just to give you an idea how this game went about, the Browns, this is 2 straight games now that they have self-destructed in the second halves of games and wound up falling flat on their faces.
This time, it's their kicker's fault.
Yeah. The kicker's fault. He had a chance to win the game at the end, and he did not do the job. And what happens? The Dolphins grab the game by the throat in OT to get it.
Yeah, Corey Lamonier gets the strip sack of Ryan Tannehill when the game is tied 24 in the fourth quarter. It's 25 seconds left in the game. 20 seconds left in the game. It sets up Cody Parkey for what could be the game-winning field goal. 46 yards, sails wide left. And then Jay Ajayi got the game-winning 11-yard touchdown with about 8:21 to go in OT. Dolphins win their first game. Browns looking for a victory. Steelers, talk about getting smacked up, man. Again, in Philadelphia, 34-3. Roethlisberger, Brown were all shut out. It was all Carson Wentz all day, 301 yards, 2 big touchdowns, including a beautiful 73-yarder to Darren Sproles on a catch-and-run play.
I said that Carson Wentz needed a big, big test to see how he can do against a real contender. In this case, it just so happened to be their cross-state rivals. Wentz was terrific.
And you know what? Him and Jordan Matthews have such a great rapport with each other. They both had a touchdown with each other in each game so far this year. And then Wendell Smallwood and Kenyon Martin both had their first career rushing touchdowns. Like, this was a great collective effort for the Eagles organization.
Tell you what, Carson Wentz wound up getting drafted really high by the Eagles because the Eagles traded up with the Browns to get him. He is not playing like a scared rookie. He's looking like somebody who's been in the league for about 5 or 10 years. He's taken charge of the offense. If he sees that one of his receivers or one of his offensive linemen miss an assignment, he's going to let them know about it.
Great pocket presence.
Great athletic ability, too. He runs with the ball very well, and he's also a very tough kid. Keep in mind, he won a championship at North Dakota State with a broken collarbone. So what does that tell you about the young man?
That he's not scared, and he's got great durability. Well, not durability, but the guy is not scared. He's fearless.
Tell you what, if he keeps winning like that, I think the Eagle fans might demand a statue of him outside the Link.
Oh, it wouldn't be shocking to hear that. How about the 49ers-Seahawks game? It's all Seahawks all day. Even without Russell Wilson for the last quarter and a half of the game, Von Boykin was able to do a good job. Reason I bring that up, Russell Wilson, third quarter, with about half of the third quarter to go, unfortunately with 10 minutes to go, gets pulled down awkwardly by Eli Harold on a sack. Harold lands awkwardly on his left leg, which is a bit of an MCL sprain. On a horse collar penalty, nonetheless, too. And then that's it for Wilson's game for the rest of the day. It was Trevon Boykin, the rookie out of TC, who came in to replace Wilson. Did a good job, even threw a touchdown pass to Doug Baldwin. By the way, Baldwin had a career 164-yard performance in that game for the Seahawks. Seahawks end up beating the 49ers 37-18. Blaine Gabbert had a god-awful performance. The only offense that really happened was Carlos Hyde with 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Now, Could this be the time where we see Colin Kaepernick get his due? Yes, I know, folks, I'm not going to get too much into the controversy or lack of, that is surrounding him, or the story that's surrounding him. But nonetheless, this guy has been sitting on the sidelines. Whether you agree or disagree with what he's doing, I think it's high time that the 49ers start putting him in.
And what does Chip Kelly have to say about that? He's not ready. Excuse me? This guy had a whole training camp, and he has been literally sitting on the bench, and it's not just during the national anthem either, patiently waiting for his turn. Yeah. I think this guy's ready.
And what's crazy, he started 9 of 10, Gabbert. But then he fell into one of his funks and all that. He went 4-15. This team was 4-15 on third downs with him. 14-25 passing for 119 yards in a pass-happy league. This is sad and pathetic, if you ask me. Now,
well, you got the sad part right.
How about Dak Prescott and those Cowboys tearing the Bears a new one, defeating them 31-17, 17-yard to Dez Bryant, in the fourth quarter. The fact that he led them to scoring drives on all 4 of their possessions in the first half tells you this guy has been ready for a long time. We're just finally seeing the hard work that he's put in the preseason come to fruition.
At least the Cowboys are taking advantage of the soft part of their schedule, which is good for the rookie to give him a little bit of confidence. Not only that, but he's already shown that he can be a really good player in this league, regardless of who the opponent is against. Not only that, but I think it's safe to say right now we should debate who the worst team in the NFL is right now. Is it the Bears or is it the Browns? Right now, the Browns have gotten progressively worse with each passing game that has gone by.
And here's the crazy thing. The Browns have had to go through more quarterbacks than you and I had to change shorts and all that. They've gone through, if you date back to the end of last year, Week 16, Johnny Manziel. Week 17, Austin Davis. Week 1 this year, Robert Griffin III. Week 2 this year, Josh McCown. And Week 3 last week was the debut of Cody Kessler, the 26th starting quarterback since they came back to the league in 1999. And here's the sad part. I didn't even forget to mention, Terrell Pryor was the majority of that offense for Cleveland.
Mm-hmm. Terrell Pryor, the former Ohio State quarterback who basically was in anonymity playing for the Raiders for a short time, but now that he's back in the state of Ohio, is trying to make a name for himself. I'm not really sure that Terrell Pryor is the kind of guy that you want to really rely on, especially to try and win games.
Are you kidding me? He was really the only offense this sad, pitiful Browns team had in this game.
And that's saying a lot.
144 yards and 8 catches, over 30 rushing yards, 20 passing yards. This hasn't been done since 1977. If you go even way back to 1959, since the late Frank Gifford.
Yeah.
In one game in 1959, had that over 200 all-purpose yards.
See, you can tell that this is becoming another lost season for the Browns when Terrell Pryor, an ex-quarterback, becomes your best player.
How about the Colts finally? We mentioned they got the first win of the year. It's with a minute 17 to play. Luck does what he does best in the fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. He leads his team to victory, and he did it for the 15th time in his career.
It was just a matter of time before he wound up coming away with not just a good game, but a really clutch performance when it really counted.
And this is despite the fact that early in the first half, he lost a fumble that tied the game at 13-all. It returned 61 yards, tied the game at 13-all. But it's 22-19 basically.
Mm-hmm.
Chargers have a chance to go 2-1. What happens? Luck finds T.Y. Hilton on a 63-yard zigzag play.
Mm-hmm.
With a minute 17, they win 26-22. Unbelievable. The Rams, Buccaneers, I'm just going to go quickly through these games. Rams, Buccaneers, 69-minute weather delay with 2 minutes. Didn't even matter. Bucs had 5 opportunities to get a game-winning score in the end zone, lose 37-32. Another turnover this past week for Jameis Winston. As for Case Keenum, LA finally scored points.
Yeah.
The Cardinals, Bills, on the road, and all it took was the fact that Carson Palmer, 4 interceptions on the first 5 offensive drives, 2 net yards for the Cardinals, no first downs, all 3-and-out series. And Sean McCoy, shady, 2 touchdowns. They win 33-18. Raiders, Titans, it was 10